What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another live stream on the channel. We're going to be discussing the upcoming week for the crypto market. We've got a very important week, and we're going to talk about all of it in today's live stream. So please make sure to smash up the likes if you're just joining into the stream. Bitcoin remains below the 50-week moving average and above the 200-week moving average. So to me, we are still very much in a period of, no clear movement. Like, we don't exactly know whether we're in a clear uptrend here or a clear bear market, you could say, because we haven't dumped enough to where it's definitive, where everyone says, yep, that's 100% a bear market. But we have certainly broken structure here. So I think if we dip below 74K, then it's pretty much undeniable, and everyone at that point will say, yes, we're in a bear market. But we're still in that kind of awkward middle ground right now where we're below the 50-week, which to me is a deal breaker. But we are significantly above the 200-week. So it's not really an area that I would be looking to buy Bitcoin, and therefore not an area that I'd be looking to buy altcoins in spot positions, since we've lost structure and we are not near support yet. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at things right now. We have a very big week in the sense that we are going to be getting the FOMC, which is, already looking like it's a guarantee, the actual decision from the Fed. But, as always, it's not always about the decision from the Fed. It's about the substance of the actual meeting and what is discussed at that conference. So right now, it's currently sitting around a 93% chance that we get a 25 basis point rate cut in December. That is on December 10th. We'll probably bring you that FOMC live on the channel. So that's great for you. You don't need to go anywhere else. On this channel, we'll stream it, and I'll give you my live coverage and opinions. But we're seeing some weird price action with Bitcoin on the short time frames here, in the short term. On the recent time frames, we're seeing some weird price action. Just before I started this live stream, we got this wick all the way down to 88.6K after we were showing some signs of positive momentum, getting up to 89.5. So really weird price action. It is a Sunday, so it's not always the most volatile day, but usually towards the evening, towards the end of the day, that is when you start to see some very volatile price action. But we're seeing it a little bit earlier here than usual. But people always think Sundays aren't volatile. They are volatile, but it's just towards the end of the day, at least for me in my time zone. I guess it depends where you are in the world. But obviously, markets start to open in Asia on Monday. You get the pre-market, and people already start trading markets, and volume starts coming into Bitcoin on that Sunday night. So we're seeing some weird moves. There's a bit of a liquidity grab wick down here to 88.6. In terms of like the weekly close, what would we be looking for on the weekly close? Well, as long as we're above 83K, we have technically made a higher low. So it's not looking too bad in terms of the very short term here. We made a low here at 80K, higher low here at 83K, higher low here. So as long as this kind of holds here and we can start gaining some momentum to the upside, maybe getting a bit of a bounce, that is certainly looking like positive structure. But that's the very short term here. We're looking at the 4-hour on Bitcoin. When we actually zoom out, we look at the daily, we look at the weekly, there have been significant breakdowns on key levels, not just the 50-week moving average. People will try and make you believe that it's only the 50-week moving average that we've lost. That is not the case, guys. We've lost more than just the 50-week moving average. If you draw some fibs from the 74K Bitcoin low down here to the high, we've had weekly closes below the golden pocket. And believe it or not, this exact point of rejection here on Bitcoin was at the golden pocket itself, was at the 618. So we've failed to get back above the golden pocket after losing it. You could also look at the Gaussian channel, which is something I discuss a lot on this channel as well. we lost the center line and we haven't managed to get back above the center line since we lost it. So, yes, we're seeing some short-term bullish structure building here with higher lows and higher highs, but it's still very early days, and there is no evidence to me that this is anything but just a complacency shoulder. That has to be my base case looking at the way Bitcoin is moving here. It has to be my assumption, until proven otherwise, that Bitcoin here is creating some form of complacency shoulder, some form of lower high, and we're probably going to make a move up to maybe the 50-week, right? This black line here, and possibly reject that and then come back down. If we look at the liquidity, so the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, there is a lot of liquidity building up to the upside. There's a lot of liquidity around 94K and 98K. So I think there is a solid chance that in the short term here, maybe by the end of the year, we will get some sort of a move to the upside. See a lot of liquidity there around 94.4K on the weekly. And if you go on the 2-week liquidation heat map, there's also a lot of liquidity building up even above 94K. Sorry, we're still at 94 there. Let's go on the monthly. On the monthly, I think it's building up to 98K. There we go, 98.2K. There's a lot of liquidity around those levels. So it seems very likely to me that Bitcoin will come up and test this liquidation or this liquidity zone, and probably reject somewhere around this 100 to 94K region. And then I do expect that move down to the 200-week moving average at some point next year. I really, really hope that we come down to it early on next year, and then we can get a big bounce and we can recover, later on in the year. But it's all speculation until it happens, right? We're all just speculating when things are going to happen. It's hard sometimes to know when something will happen, but it's quite easy to know that something will happen, right? We know that Bitcoin will at some point come down to the 200-week. We just don't know when it will be. Will it be early Q1? Will it be late Q1? Will it be Q2? Will it be Q3? We don't know when it's going to happen, but most likely it will happen at some point next year, just based off history. Every single post-halving year, Bitcoin comes down to the 200-week at some point. It happened in 2022. It happened in 2018, right? And it just happens every cycle. It's part of the normal cyclical way that Bitcoin moves. But this time could be different. And that's what everyone hopes for. But there's still no evidence to say that this time will 100% be different, right? We haven't seen enough evidence to conclude that. But yeah, like I said, on the short time frames here, Bitcoin's looking quite weird, wicking around, not really making any clear structure. So very strange day for Bitcoin. Even though it is the weekend, it has been quite weird. I've been monitoring this price action very closely, and it's just been moving really strangely. Like I said, showing signs of a breakout and then just comes straight back down and then does this stupid wick down here, liquidating loads of the longs. So it's going to be interesting to keep monitoring this Bitcoin chart heading into the weekly close. Good seeing you with Rob. Yeah, that was a great show. I was really happy to go on Crypto Futures channel. Really enjoyed it. I always love having conversations with some reputable people in the space because there's not many left. Hi, Archie. Hope you're well. Do you think Bitcoin has a chance to go up in 2026 without going below 74K? So really interesting. If you go to Polymarket and you type in Bitcoin price by 2027, so this is before 2027, meaning Bitcoin's price in 2026, it's very interesting because Polymarket says that Bitcoin will both go above 130 and go below 65. So I think I agree with that, right? I think Bitcoin will go below 65K and above 130K, both in the same year, most likely. What I'm leaning to is we get the 65K early on in the year, and then we get the 130 later on in the year. But it all depends on liquidity and how the global markets do in that time. But I do believe we'll see Bitcoin below 74K. And I think it'll be really funny if we just go to the 2021 all-time high, and that kind of lines up around the same point as the 200-week moving average when we go there, right? Because everyone's saying, oh, if we lose 74K, we're going to go a whole lot lower. That's what I'm hearing a lot of people say. If you lose 74, it's not just going to stop in the 60s. It's going to go down to 20. It's going to go down to 30. That's what people are saying, right? But I actually think a little bit differently. I think if we lose that 74K level, there's a strong chance we just pull back to 69 or 64. Maybe at worst, you come down to this wick down here at 48K. But I don't necessarily think we lose this trading range here. I really don't. Like, I think most likely Bitcoin will bottom out somewhere in this range in the bear market. I do think we'll lose 74 at some point, but I don't think losing 74 guarantees that we go down to the 20s or the 30s, like a lot of people are saying. I think we could catch a lot of people off guard by losing 74 and then maybe just bottoming out somewhere in the 60s. But this is all speculation, right? In the very short term, Bitcoin here looks like it wants to have a bounce. I am expecting, like I said, somewhere between 94 to 100K before we go ultimately lower here. So that's really my take on the market. We're going to be monitoring the FOMC, seeing what Powell says about the year of 2026, because this will be the last FOMC of the year. Seems highly likely that we're going to get that rate cut. But the question is that enough, right? Is 125 basis point enough to pump the market, and has it already been fully priced in? Yeah, smash up the likes on the stream. Appreciate everyone being here. I think we get one last pump, but not necessarily to a new all-time high. Then we get a very short alt season that will catch people off guard, but not everything will pump. Then early Q2 next year, bear market. Everyone's got different theories, right? If the Fed is going to do QE next year, will it do it before or after the market crash? Because QE has always started when it's too late. Yeah, typically QE is like a last resort, and that is what happens once you have a market crash. QE is usually the way to recover from some form of really deteriorating labor market and really deteriorating economy. So you don't usually get QE when the market's doing really strong, right? Typically you get QE when things are weak, because it's kind of like a last resort measure to save the economy, to pump money into the system. So yeah, maybe we have the dump first and then we get the QE. It's very possible. Are you sure we won't have an alt season in 2026, or have you changed your mind? So we had 3 alt seasons this cycle, but we never had a true parabolic alt season. If Bitcoin can pull back to the 200-week moving average quite soon, then I do think mid to late 2026, we could have a really nice rally with the altcoins. It just depends on the timing of when Bitcoin makes that move down. Like I said, I hope it happens really quickly, but hope isn't really like anything to go off in investing. Hope is the nemesis word for an investor or trader. You should never be doing things based off what you hope. Q3 pump pre-midterm. So this is another thing, right? Everyone talks about the midterms. Every single year we've had a midterm year, that's been a bear market for Bitcoin. Every single midterm year has been a bear market. Okay. 2022, see that huge red candle? Midterm year. 2018, huge red candle, midterm year. So this idea of the midterms pumping Bitcoin, we haven't seen evidence of that. I'm not saying it won't happen, but I'm saying we haven't seen any evidence for that. So I don't understand why some people have this really strong conviction that the midterms is going to save the crypto market. If we pump in 2026, it won't be because of the midterms. It will be because of QE, right? It'll have nothing to do with the midterms and everything to do with QE. And the Fed and the president are not linked, right? So the Fed is independent. So if the Fed do QE, it's not to try and do anything with the midterms, right? Bullish on XPL. I like XPL a lot, but like I've said many times, this is not the right environment right now for altcoins because Bitcoin is in no man's land. It's below the 50-week moving average, yet it hasn't come down to the 200-week yet. So there's still a big risk that Bitcoin has further to drop, and that will bring altcoins down with it inevitably if that happens. So I'm not looking to get into long-term spot positions right now, but I would be open to trades. And if you look at XPL, it's been in this downtrend basically since, when was this? Since October. It's been in this clear downtrend. Eventually, this is going to break, guys. And when it does, it's going to be a massive pump for XPL. But it just hasn't broken yet. So you're probably better off just waiting for a confirmed daily candle above this trend line and then jumping in rather than trying to front run a breakout that might not happen for a good few months, right? But yeah, I also wanted to let you guys know that I am posting every single week educational content regarding charts. So it's essentially like a course I'm doing for the VIP members. So if you are interested in learning about the charts more, learning TA, learning, what moves the markets, then definitely head on over to the VIP because I'm doing a weekly TA session for the members. So highly recommend that. And also, there is a trading competition available with Blowfin right now. So if you use my link down below, that is the exchange that I personally trade on. If you use that link, you can potentially win some big rewards if you do well with the trading competition. All the information is, described when you click on the link. So check that out. But yeah, the VIP group remains super active, even though the market's doing pretty bad. And things aren't necessarily going people's way. The group is still very active. We're doing voice chats pretty much every day, and I'm in there most of the time. So definitely check out the VIP. You get loads of benefits with it. And this is a great time to join because we're getting great discounts and there's, going to be great trade opportunities as well. So definitely a good time to join. Yeah, I'll see if there's any comments and then we'll wrap up the stream. I didn't want it to be a super long stream. I just wanted to give you a bit of a summary of my thoughts on the market. Yeah, so this is another big thing, right? Everyone's talking about the new Fed chair being really, really bullish. That could be another massive double-edged sword because maybe it will infringe on Fed independence, like you say. So it's all about balance. I was saying this yesterday when I went on to Crypto Futures Show. It's all about balance. If we swing too much in one direction, for example, way too many cuts and way too much QE, inflation is just going to spiral out of control and you're going to have tapped out consumers because they can't live, they can't afford enough money to put to the side because they're just literally spending everything they earn on daily living, on daily expenses, paycheck to paycheck. So it's all about balance. We don't want too much cuts. We don't want too many cuts and crazy money printing because then inflation will go out of control. But equally, we don't want the Fed to be pausing all the time because then the labor market's going to weaken and there's not going to be enough money in the system as well. So it's all about balance. But you make a good point about the new Fed chair because everyone's super bullish about how dovish he's going to be, how he's going to cut loads, how he's going to be great for crypto. But that could also spook markets because of the the Fed independence or lack thereof because of how affiliated he is with the president. And us crypto bros, we might like the idea of a Fed chair who just wants to pump crypto, but Wall Street and these big players in these markets, they like an independent Fed. They don't want a Fed that is, you know, best buddies with the president. They want an independent Fed, and that calms them having an independent Fed. So you make a very good point. Anyway, guys, we're going to wrap up the live stream here. I appreciate all of you tuning in. I know it was a very quick one. I just wanted to give you my thoughts on the market. Like I said, a lot of liquidity is building up to the upside on Bitcoin, 94 to 98K. We're seeing some weird moves in the short term, but I still expect Bitcoin to tap into that liquidity at some point, most likely before the end of the year. Then I expect us to go lower and go for that 200-week moving average. Hopefully you gain some value from the live stream. Definitely come over to the VIP group. Check it out. I'm in there all the time talking to the members, dropping trade alerts. One of my analysts in there just posted a trade alert as well, which is doing quite well, I believe. So check that out. And yeah, get on Blowfin as well using the link down below and potentially get some rewards. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Goodbye.